Well, we have a very frightening story that developed over the weekend just in time for Halloween, making waves everywhere, and we'll try to make sense of it. So let's dig in. We've got Paul Pelosi, husband of Nancy, Speaker number 3 to the presidency. However, there's multiple problems with this apparent break-in of his house, if you will, or was it a breakout? Or there's many details we're still trying to gather because, as the title says, nothing seems to add up. So we got the incident at the Pelosi house early Friday morning is puzzling at best. There are now more questions than answers, and the police didn't share how David DePape, this was the assailant who attacked. It was a terrible with a hammer, and it was a severe injury. He had to be taken into the hospital, Mr. Pelosi. But that was just the first press conference that they had with the police.
When the officers arrived on scene, they encountered an adult male and Mr. Pelosi's husband, Paul. Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it.
The police provided more information, saying they could confirm Mr. DePape forced entry into a rear door at the rear of the Pelosi home, and people are suspicious of that. You would think there'd be more security with a high-profile couple like that. For one, if an individual broke into the home of the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, there surely is a surveillance system that would tell the police and numerous entities that the house had been broken into. Now, there's no doubt that the Pelosi's home has a security system, and it probably includes motion detectors. Any movement near the house or broken glass would immediately be registered by the surveillance company, and they in turn would notify the police of the encounter. Also, there are likely police cars circling the neighborhood where the Pelosi's live, you would think. But the police reported that Paul made the call to the police, and Paul never shared that the home was broken into. Like, hey, cops, please show up. House is broken into. Got an intruder. Please show up and save me. But that didn't quite happen the way you would think in a normal circumstances. But there are also questions about this event being a burglary. DePape reportedly forced entry into a rear door. Wonder which rear door that was, but we'll get there. Hold on. But a video from yesterday shows the glass was on the outside of the home and the stairs behind the house. So if the window was broken from the outside, wouldn't the glass on the floor be on the inside of the house? You would think. And there you have the picture right there of the glass on the outside. Does that make any sense? Now, additionally, it's been reported that DePape was in his underwear when the police arrived. This means that he most probably took off his clothes inside the house, because anyone walking around in that neighborhood in their underwear would be arrested or at least stopped. Like, hey, what are you doing now running around in your underwear, sir? And if it was a burglary, what did DePape steal? And if there's any evidence that he had things in his possession that he was stealing when the police arrived? Not that we know of, or was he hiding something in his underwear? It also sounds like someone else let the police into the home. Why did the person not call the police when the house was broken into in the beginning? Was there more than one person in the home? So the one thing the police can do to clear this all up is to release the police and surveillance camera videos. This would most likely answer those questions. And then we find out that this David is a homeless drug addict with a history of using psychedelics. And here he is actually officiating a wedding between these two people, Gypsy and James Smiths, on the steps of City Hall in San Fran in 2013. They're nudists. So this is from an article from Michael Schellenberger, who's on Substack, and he has written Apocalypse Never and San Francisco. So the details are scant, but everybody on the left is blaming Republicans. It must be somebody MAGA. It's a Trump supporter. It's got got to be some like wacko white nationalist that was looking for Pelosi and didn't find it. But as more details have surfaced, that doesn't appear to be the case. In fact, he's a notorious local nudist in a Berkeley home, complete with a Black Lives Matter sign on the window and an LGBT rainbow flag emblazoned with the marijuana symbol hanging from a tree. Closer look reveals the characteristics of a homeless encampment, or what Europeans call an open drug scene. So in the driveway there's a broken down camper van, and on the street a yellow school bus, which neighbors said DePape occasionally stayed in. So neighbors described him as a homeless addict with a politics that was left-wing, but of secondary importance to his psychotic and paranoid behavior. And here's a quote: "What I know about the family is that they're very radical activists. So they're all about the BLM movement and gay pride, but they're very detached from reality because they're doing all the psychedelics and God knows what other drugs. But they have called the cops on several of the neighbors, claiming that they are plotting against them and get their paranoid delusions." It's really weird to see that they are willing to be so aggressive towards somebody who is also a lefty. And then David's ex came out saying that he's mentally ill and once came home thinking that he was Jesus. Now, his ex is also a jailed nudist activist in California, but goes by the name Gypsy. She's currently locked up in the Californian Institution for Women after being convicted on abduction charges last year. She gave one account saying that he came home several years ago in bad shape, thought he was Jesus. He was constantly paranoid, thinking people were after him, and it took a good year or two to get back to, being halfway normal. And President Biden came out to tell reporters about the attack, saying all the talk of a stolen election is to blame for the violence. It has to stop. Saying it isn't enough to condemn the violence, but those who argue that the election was stolen must also be condemned, and talk of a stolen election must stop. So immediately they took to blame their political opposition, and they put out the talking point that when David allegedly got into the house, that he was asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" As if it was just some crazed right-winger with a hammer that wanted to kill Pelosi over the stolen election, what have you. So Joe condemns the violence and all the malarkey being put out there to undermine democracy. You can't just apologize and say the violence. It affects people's mentality. It affects how people think, particularly people who are maybe not as stable as other people. And Rand Paul, who can relate to being attacked, also came out to say, hey, well, unlike Nancy Pelosi's daughter, who celebrated my assault, I condemn this attack. And if you remember, in early 2017, Senator Paul was attacked when he was just out mowing his yard, and it broke 6 of his ribs. He also suffered from pneumonia after the attack and nearly died. So Boucher, his neighbor, is reportedly an unhinged, Trump-hating socialist. So it was a politically motivated attack. And Hillary Clinton got involved, of course, saying the Republican Party and its mouthpieces now regularly spread hate and deranged conspiracy theories. Well, like the Russian collusion hoax? Yeah, okay, Hillary. But it is shocking, but not surprising, that violence is the result. I wonder what she said about Rand Paul. So as citizens, we must hold them accountable for their words and the actions that follow, using this LA Times article, but to smear the GOP without having any of the facts to support that he was a right-winger. And new Twitter CEO Elon saw the opportunity to call Hillary out with some other information, saying there's a tiny possibility that there might be more to this story than meets the eye. Now, this is out of the Santa Monica Observer, which I'm not really that familiar with. Until that, some people are saying it's fake information, and Elon has since taken this post down. They did have an interesting story to spin, so I'm not saying it's legitimate or not, but it says the awful truth that Paul Pelosi was drunk again and in a dispute with a male prostitute early Friday morning. So we remember Paul had a DUI a couple months back, and that was obviously a big national story. They kind of tried covering it up a bit. Some people are saying that there was a passenger there. I can't confirm any of this, so we take this with a grain of salt, but it's still newsworthy that this was covered. covered, and people got to see this article. So Paul Pelosi apparently stated that he doesn't know who the male is, but he devised that his name is David and that he is a friend. Yeah, right. So as San Francisco's gay bars closed at 2 a.m., two gay men met in a bar and went home together. Happens every night in the city by the bay, except one of these two men was married to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, this could be fake news, but the author brings up an interesting point. So the Pelosis are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Nancy is third in line of the presidency. You don't think they have the most amazing security? And by the way, when Pelosi was in that drunk driving accident, he had a young man with him. Again, we don't know. And that too was covered up by the police and the press. So how does he know and the rest of us don't know? We're not sure, but this is why Elon took down the post. But it does gather some interesting questions that you're not hearing from the LA Times, who wants to make this all about, white nationalist, MAGA, crazy Trump supporter attacking Nancy because of the stolen election results. That's BS too. And here's the initial press conference, and they found a guy on a hot mic. Again, can't confirm, but it does look legit, on the phone with his boss saying, "Hey, so is this the dude that's a former nudist?" And yeah, okay, well, is it okay to say any of that stuff? Nope. So they wanted to keep the details away from the public before they can get into that and start questioning that.
Okay, so is this the dude that was a former, nudist dude? Okay. Yeah, okay. Is it okay to say any of that stuff? No? Yeah, all right, cool. All right, so, but we kind of have a working knowledge of who this guy may be. Hang on one second. Let me go see what they've got over here. I'll call you back. Bye.
So they tried to cover up the embarrassing details because they wanted to frame this as a politically motivated attack. And people on Twitter were asking questions. Here you have Dinesh D'Souza saying, why were Paul Pelosi and his attacker both in their underwear, both holding hammers? And the attacker didn't strike until after the police were on the scene. As a movie maker, I gotta say this script must be rejected. Nothing about the public accounts so far makes any sense. And then you have Cat Turd saying, I hope nobody with two hammers with a manifesto wearing only underwear gets past my fenced-in property, sneaks by my 6 alert dogs, breaks my window, hands me a hammer, and we get into a hammer fight tonight. And here's another meme representation, and it is San Francisco. And hey, I'm not even judging Paul Pelosi. I don't care if it's just a political sham marriage and that he's a homosexual and that he invited David into his home and they were doing something and they got into a lover's quarrel. That's none of my business. I don't even care. But don't blame MAGA for your weird lifestyle choices. Well, there you have it. It's a very bizarre story on Halloween weekend, during eclipse season, right before an election coming up, and with a very high-profile political family there. And it's absolutely terrible what happened to him, regardless of your political leanings. No one deserves to get hit in the head with a hammer. He had emergency surgery. He's expected to make a full recovery. We hope. We just want to get some more information on this. And it should not be blamed on their political opposition right in front of this election. So we'll see what that develops next week. But thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.